All right. Drama at CBS as the network gets pulled back to reality. Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. For years now, our big three broadcast networks in this country have been operating in defiance of the FCC. ABC, CBS, NBC, pushing the propaganda of one political party in a two-party system. These networks have gone rogue, run by coastal elite leftists. The FCC's current rules, including equal time, clearly not enough to keep these executives from pushing their own politics onto the American people, which is what we see in so much of the media. For years, we've watched this happen. And at some point, it was too much for billionaire Larry Ellison and his son David. Larry using his vast wealth to buy CBS Paramount and pull one of the big three networks back to something that's actually recognizable for the majority of hardworking, sensible Americans. But the process of doing so, with former New York Times columnist Barry Weiss in charge of the news division, has been met with heavy resistance, and we're seeing that tonight. Last night, a 60-minute story about Trump's immigration policies was pulled from airing by Barry Weiss. Just to show you what the story was going to be like, here was the teaser for it.
It began as soon as the planes landed. The deportees thought they were headed from the U.S. back to Venezuela, but instead they were shackled, paraded in front of cameras, and delivered to Cecot, the notorious maximum security prison in El Salvador, where they told 60 Minutes they endured 4 months of hell.
Did you think you were going to die there?
We thought we were already the living dead, honestly.
The story that was set to air last night on 60 Minutes was going to be effectively a sob story for the illegal immigrants that have been deported out of this country to El Salvador's Cecot prison, which, of course, as you know, we've covered here, was built by the country's new conservative president, Nayib Bukele, who has liberated his nation of El Salvador from the grip of cartel and gang violence. Cecot is a serious place. It is the real deal. It's where you send bad dudes. The Cecot deportations, a move by the Trump administration that American leftists have found appalling. They're very, very furious about anybody being sent there from this country, even some really bad people. Remember Kilmar Abrego, the Maryland man, here illegally, and then also MS-13, human trafficking, allegations of beating his girlfriend. These are the types of people that Trump and HHS have been sending to Cecot. People that broke into our country illegally after either committing atrocities in their homeland or committing atrocities here in the United States. More examples. Christian Torres, criminal conviction for kidnapping, arrested for the alleged rape of a woman in Tennessee. Jose Eduardo Moran Garcia, wanted in El Salvador for aggravated homicide and other charges as well. Edward Jose Parra Urbina, accused of selling ketamine cocaine to an FBI informant in Dallas. Wilker Miguel Gutierrez Sierra, pending charges including attempted murder, robbery and aggravated battery in the city of Chicago. That's a look at the kinds of people that have been sent out of here and sent to Cecot. 60 Minutes wanted to spend about 15 minutes last night vilifying the Trump White House for sending these people to Cecot without due process, along with allegations that some of the 250 or so that have been sent to Cecot have no criminal history, which we can tell you is likely because they've only been charged with crimes at this point and not convicted, so they still technically don't have a criminal history, or they're just alleged to have committed horrible crimes in their native countries, never convicted there, ran here instead. That was going to be the story. It was going to be a sob story for the kinds of people I just described. Now, Barry Weiss killed the story simply saying that it wasn't ready yet, indicating that it would air in the future when it was ready, and actually had a pretty thoughtful response to why they made this decision. Not that she's turned off by the idea of doing the story, that perhaps there is something to this, that there's not, there's not due process, not enough, whatever the allegations were going to be that Sharon Alfonsi was going to make in the story, she's open to. She just said that the story is not there yet. Democrats and the media in response to that are absolutely furious.
Billionaires are compromising the most important journalistic institutions we have left in this country. The game is obvious. And in this case, Barry Weiss, who is, by the way, not A reporter, not a journalist, is cosplaying as one and is poisoning the well of one of the last bastions of investigative reporting that gets funded.
His ideology has been in full control of all broadcast media in this country for years now. And the moment that control is tampered with, they are all now screaming that we're living in a right-wing totalitarian state. And again, Barry Weiss is not a right-winger, by the way, the person that is running the CBS newsroom. Take a listen to Brian Stelter, who was fired by CNN, by the way, for being too partisan on the left.
This is a blow to credibility, whether or not the piece actually airs in the future. I'm told by sources at CBS that Barry Weiss became more personally involved at 60 Minutes in the past couple of weeks. But she said to staffers this morning that the story simply was not ready for air yet. It was not ready to go. More reporting must be done. And frankly, I'm not hearing many supporters of hers internally at CBS. I'm hearing a lot of criticism about this decision.
Not many supporters of Barry Weiss at CBS. A reminder, Barry Weiss, as I just said, is a liberal. She just wasn't radically left enough to continue working at the New York Times, which is a dumpster fire at this point. She's a left-of-center moderate, and the left-leaning media apparatus sees her as a threat. What does that tell you? That a left-of-center moderate running CBS is an atrocity. What does that tell you about how far left this country has been pulled? Sharon Alfonsi, the CBS reporter working that Cecot story, the 60 Minutes reporter, outraged over this. She sent out an email in the newsroom calling it a political decision to cut a story that had been vigorously vetted, she says. She says it was political. Sharon should probably zoom out a little bit, though, because this isn't a story just about, oh, this made it through standards and practices, we should put it on the air. All of this is much bigger as you look at CBS. What kind of news should CBS be presenting every day? Is sending 250 obviously dangerous people to Cecot really a major American immigration controversy after what we've seen for the last few years, after the previous administration allowed millions and millions of people to enter this country illegally? Don't we need some kind of a move to deter the chaos that we've been through for the last 3 years? Shouldn't we be sending a message to criminals from other countries? Don't come here, don't run here and start committing crimes when you get into this country illegally. Don't run from your crimes there and come here either as some kind of refuge after you've committed a homicide somewhere in Latin America. There's probably a much stronger immigration story to tell if you're 60 Minutes and you only tell 3 stories a week. There's probably a much stronger immigration story to tell, just perhaps not one that's going to be popular among the ideologies inside CBS News. Artel Cueto is a border security expert. Mercedes Schlapp also with us tonight. Good to have you both here. Mercy, I want to start with the media side of this. 60 Minutes wanted to effectively do a sob story on the illegal criminals that we're sending to Cecot as their immigration story.
Right.
That's just not, to me, that's not the big story. And that's not, I mean, that doesn't tell the story of immigration in this country right now.
Well, and I think that you've seen with Sharon Alfonsi, she could not get any administration official to give a quote or an interview. And I think for Barry Weiss, look, she has every right as editor-in-chief to basically say, hey, we're putting a hold on the story until we get the better sourcing, until I really have a chance to take a look at this and see what the context is. One thing that Barry possibly could have done was make calls into the administration saying, do you want to tell your side of the story? So because we know that the administration does not trust 60 Minutes, we know that Trump successfully sued 60 Minutes. And I'm sure that Barry Weiss is saying, hey, I don't want to get sued again. So, look, I think that it is completely in her realm, in her decision making to say we're putting a hold. And I think what Sharon Alfonsi did to basically go out in public and make this into a political debate, I think was a big mistake.
Yeah. And Alfonsi said that the administration not responding to the request for interview was their way of trying to get the story killed, which is what a reporter would say. And she has a point there. But perhaps if CBS had been a little more fair to the president in the past, if they had been a little bit more, if they hadn't coddled Kamala Harris with that interview a year ago, it would be a lot different. And maybe they could get these interviews for this story. They could be able to score those interviews that they need. Art, the people being sent to Cecot are bad dudes. I don't think that's really, I don't think you can question that. The media, 60 Minutes, is claiming that some do not have criminal histories, which is what they're hooking this whole story on, that somehow innocent people are being gathered up and sent to this horrific place with no due process. Do you imagine any of those 250 are really good people?
None of them are. Look, before I worked for the U.S. Border Patrol for well over 2 decades. And before that, I worked for the state prison in Arizona. I worked maximum security prisons. And I can tell you that every single inmate that I spoke to when I was in the prison system were telling me they were innocent. So, take that the way you want to take it. Another thing is, you got individuals that were here illegally, that were being deported. They were showing that they had ties with different criminal networks and gangs. So El Salvador decided to put them in this prison. We just deported them there. They did themselves a favor and us a favor by putting them in these types of prisons because they knew what type of individuals they were. So, I mean, that's what it comes down to. But look, Rob, before we get done, I just got to say this. I've been on your news network many times, and it's not about left and right. It's about telling the truth. And I want to commend everyone at Newsmax and your network because you guys have always been very fair and you say the truth. And maybe other networks need to start paying attention to what you're doing as well.
We do appreciate that. I mean, we're trying to see the story as it is. But, it's... This, to me, is so, I mean, when you look at this, Mercedes, and you think about the immigration story that we've seen in this country over the last 4 years, which has just been chaos, absolute and total chaos. And to me, I think it's so interesting that of all the immigration stories you could tell, of all the victims in this country of illegal immigration, of all the terrible atrocities we've seen come in, all of the gang members, the cartels, how about the 60,000 kids that we've just reported that Tom Homan and DHS claim that they have saved of all the children that were lost, all the children that were trafficked. To find that these 250 who are all bad dudes is going to be the sob story CBS tells. It tells you a lot about.
And that's the thing. I challenge Sharon Alfonsi to go talk to these victims, these girls who were raped by these human traffickers, basically sold as well as sex slaves here in America, happening in our country, where there are rape trees, where the girls get raped multiple times as they're being crossed through the border. These stories are so tragic, Rob. And to me, that they're trying to make these illegal gang members into the innocent guys and the victims is disgusting. And really, that's where you have to uncover the humanitarian crisis that has happened because of Joe Biden's failure to secure the border, because he empowered the human traffickers. He empowered the drug cartels, these drugs coming into America, killing thousands of Americans. I mean, I got to tell you, that's why it's just disappointing to watch how, Alfonsi has come out in her whole political rant without saying, let me really hone in on this story about the children and the young women and young boys who have been sex trafficked in America. It's
so much of a bigger story, and that was the point I was trying to make. Art, go ahead.
You just highlighted some serious pieces of human garbage at the beginning, and you showed their pictures. Why don't they talk about those stories? Why don't they talk about that's what's been coming into the country under the last 4 years? That's what they need to highlight.
That's exactly right. I want to get to one more thing before I let you both go. Mercedes, I want to show the head of the FCC, Brendan Carr, was grilled on Capitol Hill by an impressively ignorant senator from the state of Nevada. This was hilarious. Take a listen to Jackie Rosen demanding that Brendan Carr go after Fox News the way that he's going after broadcast networks. She doesn't realize that the FCC does not regulate cable. Take a listen.
Will you commit to opening an investigation into Fox News for its deceptive editing of this clip? Again, yes or no, please, because I have questions for the other witnesses.
No.
No. So you're an elected bureaucrat. You're deciding that some investigations should go on and others shouldn't. This was clearly edited. Why is one edit fine and one edit not?
It's based on the law. The Fox News interview was on cable. There's no public interest standard. There's no broadcast hoax rule. There's no news distortion. There's no role for the FCC there.
I think there is a rule for fairness, and the American public understand what's fair and just.
It's like, I mean, we have broadcast channels these are federally regulated airwaves.
Yes.
ABC, CBS, NBC. You got NPR. You got PBS. Fox News, Newsmax, CNN, MSNBC are not among those, Jackie. You should probably know that if you're a U.S. Senator, Mercy.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, look, you know how the Democrats, how this rolls with them. They always want to change the rules. They'll try to do everything they can to shut down conservative media. And look, I think for Brendan Carr, he's doing the right thing and standing up and basically saying, sorry, the broadcast news, they have different standards that they have to abide by. And when they don't, we're going to investigate. And not only that, you've seen what President Trump has been able to do. He's been able to successfully sue some of these broadcast channels for their basically deceitful types of interviews favoring one candidate over the other.
Yeah.
And, it really comes to the point that they pay the price.
That's right. Mercy, Arto, Cueto, Merry Christmas to you both. Thank you guys for coming on.
Merry Christmas.
Appreciate it.
Merry Christmas.
All right. In the midst of the biggest scandal Minnesota has ever seen, the state's attorney general releases the probably dumbest video possible. It's coming up next.
If you plan to scam Minnesotans, think again. You're stepping into the wrong ring.
Will you be able to afford your golden years? Do you worry how you'll make ends meet? You may be leaving up to $100,000 unclaimed. You need this special report. How to boost your Social Security and retirement by at least $100,000 or more. Get your free copy today. You've earned the benefits. Take advantage now. See our special offer to claim your free report. Call or go online today.
It's the Blue Compass RV annual Blue Tag clearance. Save over 40% on select new RVs during our largest sale of the year. Plus, every RV comes with a 1-year VIP membership to RV Complete, a $5,000 value. Visit us online or in store today.
Your data is like a single domino. The moment it's stolen, it starts a chain reaction that puts the information that guards your assets at risk. 1 in 3 Americans have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk it?
When I saw zeros on that screen as my bank account balance, I went to immediate panic.
$21,000 just gone. I opened my account and $30,000 is missing. Like $30,000. I have no idea what to do.
If your personal information is stolen, are you prepared to pick up the pieces alone? LifeLock is the leader in identity theft protection and restoration.
Once LifeLock got involved, everything changed.
With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they'll step in and fix it so you don't have to, guaranteed. Our highly trained U.S.-based restoration specialists contact institutions, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
LifeLock pursued this case further than I ever would have imagined.
If you call right now, you'll get LifeLock for just $9.99 a month for your first year. And as extra protection, all LifeLock memberships include the $1 Million Protection Package. Our members receive reimbursement for stolen funds and personal expenses, like lost wages, as well as coverage for lawyers and experts up to $3 million in total.
When the bank refused to reimburse my stolen money, the $1 Million Protection Package came through for me.
Our restoration guarantee and $1 Million Protection Package are included in all memberships with no additional fees.
I think it's natural to think that you can do this on your own. You can't. You need an expert in your corner.
Call 1-800-360-9220 and use promo code TV35 or go to lifelock.com/TV35 to join today.
I wish I could just watch live sports at home for a great price.
Choose and customize your channel lineup or pause and watch for free. Sling lets you do that. Base package required.
All right, amid a fraud scandal that will certainly be the biggest the state of Minnesota has ever seen, the state's attorney general, Keith Ellison, actually posted this on social media last week.
Scammers think Minnesotans are easy targets. They are wrong.
When scammers go after our seniors, students, or families, I step in fast and we shut them down.
If you plan to scam Minnesotans, think again. You're stepping into the wrong ring.
Okay. Let's talk about the scam and the Somalia and the fraud and everything else that's coming out of that state, as Keith Ellison is just completely brain dead at this point. New Wall Street Journal opinion piece breaking down federal fraud, much of which has come out of Minnesota. This one, though, looking a little bit closer at welfare and what we've done in this country to welfare, which has become an abomination. Real federal welfare spending has soared by 765%, more than twice as fast as total federal spending, and now costs $1.4 trillion annually, where that money doled out evenly to the 19.8 million families the government defines as poor. Each household will receive more than $70,000 a year. $70,000 a year for everyone that lives in poverty is what they could give out if they just did this a different way. The government's failure to account its many welfare benefits as recipients' income, you can see it there on the screen, allows welfare households to blow past the income level where a working family no longer qualifies for government help. So we are just lighting money on fire by the method of trying to save the poor, the helpless. Instead of allowing people to abuse these welfare programs, the piece continues in the Wall Street Journal, the government could just give every poor family in America enough money to raise its income to above the official poverty level. It would only cost $240 billion to do this. It would reduce the annual deficit by 2/3. Congressman Tim Burchett is on the House Oversight Committee, now investigating the widespread fraud uncovered in Minnesota government programs. He joins us now. Let's talk for a second. We're going to get to Minnesota, obviously, but let's just talk about welfare and the way that we're handling this in this country and the way that we're trying to lift the poor up, which is probably the worst possible way we could be doing this.
Absolutely. You know, they gave President Trump grief when he wanted to reduce waste, abuse, and fraud. And they said, look at all the money you've cut from poor people. I was at West Town Mall in Knoxville today, ringing the bell for the Salvation Army. And this kid covered in tats, moved here from San Francisco, was kind of reading me off about all that, all the money that we eliminated. I explained to him as waste, abuse, and fraud. He really had no answer to that other than it was cutting into poor people, and then he went off on billionaires. You know, we should not allow people to be billionaires. These people have been indoctrinated, and we've got to get past this mindset of entitlement in this country. And you know, Minnesota it's the tip of the iceberg, brother. I mean, It is the tip. I had a meeting with the Secretary of State this past week, and he explained to me, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said in Tim Burchettism, but he said, of the money we send to NGOs, some of these NGOs, 60% salary, 20% goes to logistics. Yeah. And then maybe 20% goes to what it was supposed to be, you know, whatever fund it has, and whatever crooked politicians need the kickback. I added the kickback part, but that's what I think is going on with it.
Yeah. It's so sad. I mean, and the moment that you try to tinker with that, here comes they go vile. They just get
you're
rabid.
A racist, you're a Nazi, you're just everything. Exactly. And they go through all the horrible adjectives that, and you know they've lost their argument, but they've been so brainwashed by this, the hatred of capitalism and people that have received a little bit of success that have gotten off their butt and maybe went out to work before noon and stayed out after dark to earn a salary for their families. Yeah, you know, those are the people they're critical of.
And the truth is, and those numbers in that Wall Street Journal piece prove it. But there's we are handing out to people that are on the dole. There's a lot of those people on the dole that are living a better quality of life than people that are still working in this country, and that is a one-way ticket to hell. I mean, if once people realize that, like, why am I working? You know, I got 2 kids. Why am I working to make $60 grand a year if I can make 70 on welfare? Why the hell would anybody work? That's so scary. Yeah. I want to show this. Minnesota fraud whistleblowers apparently scared to speak up. The Minnesota DHS says Tim Walz has systematically retaliated against them using monitoring, threats, repression in order to keep these fraud reports discreet, because this fraud in his state should be the end of his political career. There's a state rep calling out how the governor is trying to basically bully people into shutting the hell up about this story. Take a listen.
This fraud has been perpetuated on your watch, and the whistleblowers who reach out to us within the department are terrified, and they feel that they've been retaliated against already. They feel that they are very afraid. They're afraid to reach out to us. And if they thought we were then turning around and giving it to you, we would not have whistleblowers.
State records say that the DHS in Minnesota has continued funding fraudulent nonprofits long after they've been charged for stealing the state's money. They just kept sending money after they were charged with stealing the money. There's one called Kajug, a Somali charity that was found guilty of stealing $9 million from the Personal Care Assistance Program in 2023, has since received $600,000 in payments without any pause whatsoever. They steal and they keep getting money from the government because the people that run the state of Minnesota could not care less about the federal government money because there's trillions of it and it just keeps coming in.
It's just like a lot of people in Washington. As long as it keeps them in power, they don't care.
They don't care.
And we've got a real problem with that mentality in Washington, D.C. right now, brother.
It is something else. Yeah, I don't know. And then you start to wonder, like, of all the states, Minnesota can't be the worst, right? You start to wonder what, like Kevin Kiley in California is talking about how awful it could be in his state. And it could be 10x what Minnesota is. Imagine what California looks like.
Oh, it's a run amok. And then but all across the country, you've got these areas that get in these rural areas and preach that same garbage. Yeah. Fred Thompson, our great U.S. Senator, since passed away, is a dear friend of mine, said, Timmy, he said, when you got more people that are riding in the cart than are pulling the cart, that's when you got a problem. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing in America. We better wake up. When 12% of the population goes and votes, this is what happens.
That's exactly right. And Ben, and when you get ready to pay the taxes, which is coming up here pretty soon, and when you get that number of how much you sent to the IRS, realize that about half of that money was probably lit on fire. That's the scary thing. Tim Burchett, good to see you, Congressman. Thank you so much.
Hope you have a very politically incorrect Merry Christmas, bro.
Very politically incorrect, as always. Good to see you, sir. Merry Christmas to you. Bet you didn't expect to see Nicki Minaj at Charlie Kirk's America Fest. That's next.
Dear New Scum.
Hi, I'm Charlotte McBride. I love working at Newsmax because every day we bring you honest reporting with real conversations, no spin. We're not telling you how to think. We're just giving you the facts and letting you decide what's best for you and your family.
My cell phone bill kept going up. I started looking around, what are our other options? With Consumer Cellular, I'm saving over $50 a month. Same coverage, same data, same talk, same cell phone, simple.
So why am I paying way more for a big wireless plan? What am I getting for my money?
Consumer Cellular gives you the same fast, reliable nationwide network for up to half the cost of big wireless.
Same tower, same coverage.
I feel like people should know that.
They cut my bill just about in half.
I'm saving almost $100 a month.
That's over $1,000 a year.
Not only did I save money, but our coverage was vastly improved. It was fantastic.
There's got to be a catch, and I'm going to find it by going straight to the CEO himself, Ed Evans. What's up, Ed?
Because we serve primarily the 50-plus market today, we know our customers are going to use a lot less data. We can then set our pricing substantially lower than what the big three are able to do on the exact same networks.
Oh, I love that.
My job is to help you save money on wireless, even if you're on an unlimited plan.
My bill with the big carriers was over $300, and with Consumer Cellular, it's about $100.
Our customers ranked us #1 in network coverage satisfaction. And there's no long-term contracts.
When I look at what I had with Verizon, I'm not sure what I was paying extra for.
And yes, you could keep your number, no problem. Want to bring your phone? That's great too. We'll have you wrapped up in about 20 minutes. Really.
We hadn't gone back. We're not going back. We're with Consumer Cellular.
Call now and see how one of our U.S.-based Switch Pros can cut your bill by up to half. That's right, up to half. And when you call right now, you'll get your second month free. Just use the code SECONDFREE. And AARP members save even more. Call 1-800-918-0560. That's 1-800-918-0560.
Total Beats Ultimate Heart Health is the newest innovation from America's best-selling Beats brand. Ultimate Heart Health contains a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support, plus CoQ10 for even better heart health. Find Total Beats Ultimate Heart Health at Walmart today.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
I have the utmost respect and admiration for our president.
That wasn't on the bingo card. Rapper Nicki Minaj at Turning Point's America Fest. I don't think anybody saw this coming. She walked out on stage to this multi-day event that just wrapped up in Arizona, walked out on stage arm in arm with Erica Kirk. She showed a lot of love for the president, for common sense policies, which is what this election that we just went through was all about. She actually showed some love for the Vice President, J.D. Vance, as well. Take a listen.
Our vice president, he makes me, well, I love both of them. They're both powerful men, smart, strong, all of that, but both of them have a very uncanny ability to be someone that you relate to. I can relate to them. When I hear them speak, I know that they're one of us.
Yeah, they're normal. They're like authentic, actual people that live on this planet with the rest of us. Minaj has recently become kind of a big problem for Gavin Newsom in the state of California, because Gavin Newsom is a Democrat, and Democrats rely heavily on the diversity of the vote and on the black vote. And Nicki Minaj is very, very popular in the black community. And Nicki Minaj thinks Gavin Newsom is an idiot. And at AmFest, she hit him even harder. Take a listen.
Imagine being the guy running on wanting to see trans kids. Haha, not even a trans adult would run on that. Dear Newscom, we don't have a problem cleaning up the scum if we have to. Please tread lightly. That's what I would say to Gavi Poo.
Okay. It was an interesting speech. One more here, Nikki, with some advice for young men.
For young men, don't be new scum. You have amazing role models like our handsome, dashing president. And you have amazing role models like the assassin J.D. Vance.
Xavier DuRousseau is a former BLM activist who saw the light and joins us now. Xavier, good to see you again. A standing ovation for Nicki Minaj. I don't think anybody saw that coming when she walked in. The Washington Post last week detailed the magnification of this young rapper who's very, very, very popular in the urban black community in this country. Your thoughts on what we saw on that stage?
Man, I mean, I 100% saw this coming, and that's because I have been a Nicki Minaj super fan for a while, and I've noticed how she has constantly called out corruption from elite institutions, especially in Hollywood. Now, considering that Nicki Minaj has had to suffer through how horrible of a governor Gavin Newsom is, it was only a matter of time before she was going to start putting her foot on his neck as well. I mean, she lives in California, so she knows how horrible the crime issue is, the illegal immigration issue. She has a young son, so I'm sure she doesn't want her child going to school and having people like Gavin Newsom wanting to see her son become a trans kid. So again, it was only a matter of time before this cultural realignment would start to happen. Nicki Minaj got on stage and essentially said that we need to prioritize freedom, faith, faith. We need to be able to do our own research, to speak our mind, and to ask our own questions, and that you shouldn't have to degrade someone of another race in order to uplift one. None of that should be controversial, but it's become controversial on the left to say these things because the left would much rather see Black women go on stage and twerk for votes or be illiterate strippers like Cardi B to speak broken Ebonics to try to win over the Black community. Enough is enough, and I'm so proud of Nicki Minaj.
It is interesting that, Nicki Minaj didn't come on the stage and perform. They wanted to hear what she had to say, which is not usually the case. I mean, we remember how Kamala ran, and when she would have a big performer, you saw what you got. There wasn't an intelligent conversation aspect of it. But there is a ton of outrage over this from the left, of course, which requires Black Americans to think a certain way, or they just ostracize them. What's your reaction to that, and how angry people are about this woman having a different opinion on politics?
I think it's really ironic, but also something I completely expected. Like you said, the left does not like to see Black people stray away from the plantation that they have tried so hard to keep us on. And having Nicki Minaj go and think independently and have the audacity to speak her mind, that is enraging people on the left. You see them making the most racist comments I've ever seen. I saw one popular liberal influencer say that Nicki Minaj needs to go back to twerking. So he literally said he would rather see her twerk than speak her mind and have an opinion. And it's not like, again, she's saying anything overtly controversial. She's saying to stop persecuting Christians and that we should be able to ask questions and that we should be able to, enjoy our freedoms as Americans. But that is not acceptable on the left, and that's why the left continues to lose.
I hear you there. Got to ask you one more before I let you go. Dave Chappelle, who I love as a comedian, is out with a new Netflix special. He's got some interesting comments, though, on this one, on Charlie Kirk and also on comparisons of Charlie Kirk to Martin Luther King. Take a listen to this.
They both got murdered in a terrible fashion. They both got shot in the neck, but that's about where those similarities end. Charlie Kirk is a internet personality. Internet are negative because they have to be, because nobody will engage them unless they say that makes them upset. That's Charlie Kirk.
That's a pretty half-ass assessment of Charlie Kirk and what he created. And obviously, I don't want to make a comparison between Charlie Kirk and Martin Luther King Jr. because they were in two totally different times. They had two totally different messages. But there's been a lot of people marginalizing what Charlie did. And you have to remind these people that just because they don't know his full story, that's on them. I mean, that young man built an institution. That's probably the most impactful thing for young people in this country politically that we've ever seen. And you can't take that away from him.
Yeah, I think it's completely distasteful to say that about someone that was assassinated for simply having conversations and for challenging peaceful discourse. So I think it's really distasteful for Dave Chappelle to go on stage and do that, but I'm also not shocked. He's been doing the same shtick since the late 1900s, and he just goes up there and he does everything he can to be a contrarian to whatever the popular discourse is. He just rides the pendulum of saying what he thinks is going to rage bait people. But really, I just view Dave Chappelle at this point with zero credibility because this is the same man who has made his whole personality at this point be about the world of oppression, but he's constantly praising countries like Saudi Arabia while openly admitting how much they overpay him. So when I hear Dave Chappelle, I just assume this man is compromised both financially and spiritually because only an evil man would say those things.
Yeah, I mean, boy, yeah, the commentary was really bad. And the truth is, what Charlie was doing was exposing young people to just how much of a bubble they live in, that they can't even you can't accept an alternative point of view, or you're infuriated by it. You don't have any defense of what you believe because you've never really had to learn to defend it because you don't even really know what you believe. You're just indoctrinated with orthodoxies that are nonsense. And that's what he would do on those campuses, is try to open people's eyes to that. It wasn't about offending people. It was about showing you that you live in a bubble. Welcome to the bubble. Now you have to fight your way out of it if you can. That's what he did, and that's what Chappelle completely misses. I get a stand-up comedian. What are you going to do? Xavier, good to see you. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Trump takes a second Venezuelan oil tanker. They're eyeing a third one now. How much longer can Maduro hang on to power? His money is going to run out. That is next.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people. You're looking at Carvana's newest and proudest customer. So proud that we're teaming up to create Shackvana. Shackvana will be 100% online so customers can shop from anywhere.
That's so Shackvana.
Visit Shackvana or Carvana and buy your car today.
I was tired of being exhausted at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and constantly suffering from brain fog.
Toxic EMF radiation is coming from your cell phone and smart devices and being absorbed by your body.
We don't see EMFs. It's out of sight, out of mind.
That's why people around the world are choosing Bodywell. Bodywell's technology holds a harmonic pattern that helps your body respond better to EMF exposure, reducing EMF radiation absorption up to 80%. Just peel, stick, and protect.
This little device changed everything.
Bodywell's BioCard protects your entire body. Simply place it in your pocket.
I didn't believe in EMF protection until I actually felt the difference.
I sleep much better, more like a baby.
I mean, my kids are my world, and I want to do everything I can to protect them and give them a better life.
Order your BioCard today, and for a limited time, get a BioChip, a $99 value for free. Go to Bodywell.com. That's Bodywell.com.
It's the Blue Compass RV annual Blue Tag clearance. Save over 40% on select new RVs during our largest sale of the year. Plus, every RV comes with a 1-year VIP membership to RV Complete, a $5,000 value. Visit us online or in store today.
Protect your family. Buy LifeVac now.
Thank you, Dad.
That was us over 10 years ago.
Now LifeVac is responsible for saving over 4,000 lives from choking.
In the time it takes you to pick up the phone and call, another life could be saved.
The LifeVac saved my life in 1-2 seconds.
Protecting families has always been our mission. I'm sure you love your family like I love my daughter. Do us all a favor and get your own LifeVac now.
Go to lifevac.net or call 877-LifeVac. Order now.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. With trillions of dollars vanishing from the stock portfolios of retiring Americans, many hardworking people I speak with are concerned about the holdings in their IRAs. But I have good news for you. Our team at Swiss America can show you how easy it is to own gold in your IRA. You see, even with economic turmoil all around us, gold continues to not only be a safe haven, but is also increasing to all-time highs. The volatility of markets has created a lot of undue stress for people. Wouldn't you like that peace of mind that diversifying into metals can provide? For over 40 years, Swiss America has helped people just like you own precious metals in your IRAs. So don't miss this opportunity. Call or text our team at the number on your screen to receive a free copy of our Gold IRA brochure today.
Your parents have given you some amazing gifts. Celebrate the ones you inherited with Ancestry DNA. Explore the detailed family roots, cultures, and traits that shaped who you are today for only $29.
Why should Maduro take your threats seriously? And
he can do whatever he wants. I mean, we have a massive armada formed, the biggest we've ever had. Whatever he wants to do, if he wants to do something, if he plays tough, it'll be the last time he's ever able to play tough.
There you go. The president of Mar-a-Lago this evening warning Maduro if he tries to act tough, it'll be the last thing he ever does, announcing a new golden fleet of Trump-class battleships today as well. Pledging land strikes against drug cartels could also begin soon. Colombia, Mexico. We have a lot of issues to our south. He's ready to clean this up and stop living this way in a country that has this mess to its south that we have to endure and take in all of these drugs that kill all of our people. The Atlantic claims Trump has discovered Maduro's Achilles heel by targeting the economic lifeblood of the regime, which are oil exports. His pressure campaign escalated this weekend against Caracas, the administration releasing video of a second Venezuelan oil tanker seizure. He's just taking the oil that's going in or coming out of Venezuela after we took a very large Venezuelan tanker nicknamed the Skipper on December 10th. Reuters reporting earlier, the administration preparing to take a third ship that they have been pursuing today. Alex Gray knows a lot about national security, worked in the first Trump administration and joins us now. Good to have you on, sir. Reporting suggesting that Russia is evacuating their embassy employees out of Venezuela, which makes you wonder what they know and what they think happens next. What do you think happens next?
Well, thanks for having me. I think what happens next is the Maduro regime is running out of cash to pay the people who he has to keep on sides the intelligence agents, the security services, the military. He's got to pay those guys with the proceeds from this oil revenue, this illicit oil revenue. And when that runs out, he starts to run out of options. And the people who have the Chavez and Maduro regimes have consecutively kept on their sides through paybacks, those guys start looking around their shoulders saying, I wonder if it's better off to cut a deal with the Americans. I wonder if it's better to take Maduro out ourselves than to sit here with a target on their backs and no oil revenue to maintain their lifestyles.
I mean, the Wall Street Journal says that the U.S. oil blockade of Venezuela is pushing Cuba toward collapse, which is something we talked about a couple weeks ago, that if Venezuela falls, Cuba goes right behind because Cuba is fully reliant on Venezuelan energy. Do you think this happens soon? I mean, is it going to be a wild holiday season here, Christmas into New Year's? Are we going to see some major changes? It feels like that we're on the cusp of something.
Well, let's remember, the Biden administration put these sanctions on most of the ships that we're talking about here. They're the ones that added them to the blacklist. And Biden didn't do a single thing to actually enforce these sanctions. So these ships have been running around for years in many cases, keeping this regime alive. And Trump, in a very short period of time, has started to cut off their lifeline. I think if he ratchets this up, which I have every expectation he's going to do, and he goes after additional ships, we get close to 10 or a dozen, you're going to see, if he does that in the next couple of weeks, you will see rapid deterioration in the ability of the regime to sustain itself. And you will, in my prediction, you will start seeing people in the regime defecting. You will start seeing real concerns by the Maduro regime about stability internally. I think this is a matter of time before the regime starts to really start caving in on itself if the president continues the route he's going. Do
you think he continues on and gets to work on, I mean, he doesn't like Colombia's leader. Obviously, a lot of the drugs come in from Mexico as well, these countries. Does he go in after the cartels? Does he try to kind of recalibrate South America and Central America?
Well, I think he's already recalibrating South America. Even if he doesn't strike these targets directly, he put in his national security strategy that the principal focus of the American foreign policy is the Western Hemisphere, which is a very traditional American approach going back to the founding of this country. And it's only in the last 30 years or so that we got wrapped up in these Middle Eastern wars to nowhere. And he is now reorienting us to a traditional U.S. foreign policy. And you've already seen in the last couple of months, right-of-center governments elected in places like Bolivia, Chile, I think Peru will be coming soon, Ecuador, Argentina. So it's very possible that we're going to start seeing a fall of leftist regimes across the hemisphere that came up during the Biden years. And that's going to be a very different ballgame for the United States.
Yeah, and show those people just how they can get out of the misery that they live in, the misery that those regimes have brought, historically have brought to those countries. Alex Gray, thank you so much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Outrage over the Kennedy Center renaming. Up next.
Well, here we are at the scene of yet another crime committed by Donald Trump. He has vandalized the Kennedy Center.
Your data is like a single domino. The moment it's stolen, it starts a chain reaction that puts the information that guards your assets at risk. 1 in 3 Americans have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk it?
When I saw zeros on that screen as my bank account balance, I went to immediate panic.
$21,000 just gone. I opened my account and $30,000 is missing. Like $30,000. I have no idea what to do.
If your personal information is stolen, are you prepared to pick up the pieces alone? LifeLock is the leader in identity theft protection and restoration.
Once LifeLock got involved, everything changed.
With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they'll step in and fix it so you don't have to, guaranteed. Our highly trained U.S.-based restoration specialists contact institutions, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
LifeLock pursued this case further than I ever would have imagined.
If you call right now, you'll get LifeLock for just $9.99 a month for your first year. And as extra protection, all LifeLock memberships include the $1 Million Protection Package. Our members receive reimbursement for stolen funds and personal expenses, like lost wages, as well as coverage for lawyers and experts up to $3 million in total.
When the bank refused to reimburse my stolen money,
The $1 million protection package came through for me.
Our restoration guarantee and $1 million protection package are included in all memberships with no additional fees.
I think it's natural to think that you can do this on your own. You can't. You need an expert in your corner.
Call 1-800-360-9220 and use promo code TV35 or go to lifelock.com/TV35 to join today.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galina. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help Rush, a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Wanted to make you a nice little montage of the lefties all freaking out over the name change at the Kennedy Center, which is now the Trump Kennedy Center. It's pretty good, and it starts with Jim Acosta. Take a listen.
Well, here we are at the scene of yet another crime committed by Donald Trump. He has vandalized the Kennedy Center.
We should all be shocked. A grifter has just stuck his name on top of a national monument.
The Kennedy Center debacle, it has gone too far. It is seriously unwell.
Whether it's a matter of weeks or months, Donald Trump's name will come down off of the Kennedy Center.
You gotta respect how much he loves screwing with these people, because it is endlessly hilarious to watch how much they freak out. And again, none of these people ever said anything about the fact that the Kennedy Center was in a serious state of disrepair. Grinnell on the show last week explaining just how awful the place looked, just like everything else in the federal government. I mean, it was turning into the BMV, and they came in there and just fixed the place up. I mean, all the guests at the Kennedy Center Honor said the place looks incredible compared to years past. Remember what Gene Simmons said about how awful it was? Nobody cares about that. Maybe he deserves to have his name on there. Did they ever think about that? Next up, the outgoing Washington, D.C. police chief, Pamela Smith, who was caught fudging the crime numbers, pressuring her own officers to hide crime about as vile as it gets, closing out her tenure with a very sophisticated news conference.
So I'm going to the Bible when I say this to my haters. F you. No, it's not a drop the mic moment. Watch me in this space. I forgive you. I forgive you.
Yeah, we don't forgive you, and you're more than welcome to leave anytime. Leave sooner if you want. And next up, J.D. Vance mocking Jasmine Crockett for her Senate run, saying her street girl persona is about as real as her name's at the Turning Point event this weekend. Crockett, one of the fakest people in politics, firing back.
And that is actually what they are fearful of, is my authenticity, because it rings true with every single American. When you're talking about the record speaks for itself, baby, let's talk about your record. Because the only reason you're the vice president is because the current president tried to have his last president killed.
Is that her response, I guess? All right, fair enough, Jasmine. But let's all be honest. Again, you grew up in a private school, and you run around talking like you're ghetto as hell. Like, get real. Your audience would appreciate it if you could just get a little bit real. And finally, late night, more left than ever. New data from Newsbusters went through 818 episodes of late night shows in this country, which late night has just been decimated. 92% of the jokes targeted conservatives, targeted the right. Jokes targeting conservatives have risen 10% in 2025 from the year before. So they did not learn anything from the last election. Study also finding 197 liberal guests appeared on late night shows, only 2 conservatives, or what they would consider to be conservatives, over at MRC. Jimmy Kimmel, of course, is the worst. 3,046 jokes against conservatives, 97% of the political jokes that he told targeted conservatives. They didn't learn anything from the last election. He's holding on to this little tiny subsection that still watches his show, maybe 800,000 people a night for ABC, which is a pathetic number. All right, Tulsi's dire warning to the West up next.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
Vehicle breakdowns are costly, but with Endurance, you could never pay out of pocket for a costly repair again.
They covered a $14,000 engine replacement.
Call right now to get $300 off any plan. Call now.
It all started in 2022 when the Biden administration weaponized the U.S. dollar and imposed sanctions upon Russia. Central banks around the globe moved out of dollar-denominated assets and into gold. Jamie Dimon said gold could easily go to $5,000 or $10,000 an ounce. Gold recently surpassed its inflation-adjusted all-time high. Silver's inflation-adjusted all-time high is $209 an ounce.
Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 1-800-778-4156.
Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer nationwide, home of the No Fee for Life IRA. See how easy it is to protect your IRA with physical gold and silver.
Call now, 1-800-778-4156.
I trust Balance of Nature because I trust the simplicity of what it is.
This Christmas, get our best price for life when you order the whole health system as a new preferred customer. Go to balanceofnature.com.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here. I was wearing expensive hearing aids for years until a good friend of mine told me about MD Hearing. I got fitted right over the phone and I've never had a better pair of hearing aids.
With this limited time holiday offer, get 2 rechargeable Neo hearing aids for just $197 and free shipping.
Call my friends at MD Hearing and get the over-the-counter hearing aids that I use for you.
Call 800-691-2023.
I'm John Glasgow, and whether the story is right here in New York City in a courthouse or at the border wall in Arizona, we're going to be boots on the ground to bring you all the facts to make sure that you get the story straight, because that's what's important to us right here at Newsmax.
All right, finally tonight, Paris canceling their New Year's celebration. You've got a lot of people terrified to go to a German Christmas market or a European Christmas market after so many different terror acts have happened there, and there's been threats that are hopefully being foiled about every day. Radical Islam showing us what it really is. And the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, speaking at AmFest over the weekend, a very dire warning to the West. Take a listen.
There is a threat to our freedom that is not often talked about enough. And it is the greatest near and long-term threat to both our freedom and our security, and that is the threat of Islamist ideology. Their fundamental ideology is antithetical to the foundation that we find in our Constitution and Bill of Rights.
A very good warning, a very proper warning there as we move toward Christmas here in a country that was kind of founded on Christian egalitarian ideals. Rob Finnerty with us now. He's got his show coming up here at 8 o'clock. Rob, what did you ask for Christmas this year?
Well, that's a great question.
I knew you don't have an answer for it. That's why I asked.
One thing I didn't ask for a lot. I just want to be together with family. But I do think my show is devoted to that tonight, by the way, that one issue, because we should be talking about the birth of Jesus Christ and not radical Islam.
You don't want to talk about radical Islam anymore?
No, I'm going to do it for tonight, and then we're going to take a break. By the way, what'd you ask for Christmas?
Okay, I mean, who's going to give me something?
Good point.
What do I get?
All right, I will.
Yeah.
Look outside your office door tomorrow. Or tonight.
The keys to a new car would be nice.
Well, Rob,
appreciate that.
All right, have a great night. Thank you, Rob.
All right.